Becky Lynch slowly continues down her path to turning heel. Brock Lesnar is announced for next week's SmackDown, along with Seth Rollins versus Edge 2. We'll preview next week's massive SmackDown episode at Madison Square Garden and touch on Monday Night Raw. You know the deal. Let's get everything going right after this. Face it, we've all argued with friends about the best and worst Nicolas Cage films, debated who the most iconic bands in 90s rock were, even tried to settle the score over the best pizza out there. We get it. You love ranking stuff. You love lists. And until now, you've had nowhere to turn to satisfy those powerful list cravings. But finally, there is hope. A podcast for anyone that loves a good list, loves to debate, and rank anything and everything with their friends. A podcast for list makers just like you. Listwise is the podcast for list lovers by list lovers. The ultimate in ranking, debating, list making fun is here to satisfy your list lust, and you can find it every week at listwisepodcast.com or in the podcast player of your choice simply by subscribing to Listwise wherever you listen. From Apple Podcasts to Spotify, list lovers like you finally have a home in the Listwise podcast. Subscribe today because everything is fair game in Listwise. Listwise is launching Monday, September 6th with 3 episodes, and then every Monday after that. Go subscribe now to Listwise so you don't miss an episode.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast Weekend Review. Our biggest show of the week as we recap everything that has gone on in the world of WWE, SmackDown, Raw, and any other news that has occurred in between. Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to our latest patron. And by the way, forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly. I'm really not sure how to pronounce it, so I'm terrible at this stuff. That said, I would like to welcome Yinsfran Pena. Yinsfran. Boy, oh boy. I apologize if I butchered it, but thank you so much for joining and enjoy all of your ad-free. It's going to be a lovely experience, I can promise you. Those of you that want to get rid of the ads, you can also join Yinsfran and everybody else at patreon.com/WWE Podcast or on Apple at Apple Podcasts. And there's an ad-free button right there that you can join us and go ad-free, completely ad-free. With all the shows we do, and an exclusive show that's only available to patrons and to Apple Podcast subscribers, and that is the Wrestling Nostalgia Show. So thank you so much, everybody. And, as I speak, I am watching the All Out pay-per-view, and right now I'm watching CM Punk versus Darby Allin. And it is in the early stages of the match. Obviously, by the time you listen to this, we'll all know the outcome and what happened. But so far, I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. This is not the AEW review. I understand that. We'll have a full review with Mimi Burris covering the All Out pay-per-view in its entirety. But eventually I'll give you my thoughts on it in a later show. So let's get into it. And, with every single week in review, a lot of it is heavily focused on SmackDown, and we have an awesome host on this podcast that does a great job with all the SmackDown reviews in Michael Ritter. And by the way, go check out his own podcast that he does all about football called Football Function. Highly recommend. Really, really well recommend. And with the NFL starting this Thursday, you can bet your bottom dollar that he will be ready to go with his show, giving you guys some great content over there. So check out Football Function if you want to support Michael Ritter. It is it's going to be worth it if you're a football fan, and even if you're not, it would be something I think you should check out because maybe you'll become a fan of the podcast. All right, well, Becky Lynch is where I want to start because, as I said, we touch on Raw, but SmackDown is really the heavy focus because of I have a full Raw review. I want to talk about Becky Lynch right off the bat, and it does indeed seem that we are going full heel for Becky Lynch. And they're on the slow burn path to it. They're not going and doing a full turn real quick. I think that they learned their lesson with that at SummerSlam 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever it was now, and having her turn, quote, heel on Charlotte, which turned into the biggest babyface turn, and it was a very sharp 180 turn, where this is just kind of a slow progression. And I think that's where they think, meaning management, believes that they made their mistake and not understanding, number one, the crowd's support for her, like organically, and the fact that they just did turn too quick. Maybe they think that doing this slowly will be a more successful way to implement the heel turn this time for Becky Lynch, which every time SummerSlam turn comes around, it seems as if she's turning heel. But I think that this is an ill-advised turn. It's an ill-advised turn that nobody wants to see. People want to cheer for Becky. At least, like I've said 100 times, at least give us a few months of a Becky Lynch embrace, like reuniting. And they haven't given us that. They're going right to the heel turn, albeit a slow progression. And, I'm not understanding this. If this end game is just to get Bianca Belair more over, I don't think that's worth it, because that's a high risk for the goal that you're trying to achieve. Bianca Belair was doing great on her own. There's no need to sacrifice the biggest babyface in the company to try to get Bianca Belair over. Both could simultaneously exist. And why they need to feel that one needs to turn for the other makes no sense. But they put Becky on SmackDown again, which also makes no sense. All that said, I know I'm ranting a bit, and right off the bat I'm being negative. I still love the interaction between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. So I'm balancing this out. This is not a gripe and bitch show. I do want to say that they do have a very nice chemistry on the mic together. And even most importantly, I believe that Becky Lynch, or Bianca Belair, holds her own in the ring with Becky Lynch. What I mean by that is a few things. On the microphone, she seems very steady, even with Becky Lynch in the ring. She seems very confident in who she is. The outfit she wore to the ring this week was telling of that as well. I mean, my God, she was oiled up with baby oil and wearing the most enticing clothing as possible to show her physique off. And look, she's got an amazing physique. There's no question. So there's that. I mean, she has a presence about her. She has a mic steadiness about her, even in high pressure situations. And she also has a presence that just feels like a champion. I mean, she just does, and you can't really teach that. That, as Cass and Enzo would have said at one point in time, you can't teach it, and she's got it. And I like the interactions between these two, particularly this past week on SmackDown. Becky Lynch once again avoids the matchup with Bianca in the moment, but backstage we have Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville confront Becky, saying that you're going to defend this championship against Bianca Belair at Extreme Rules, and then proceeds to say, and we're going to make it official at the contract signing next week. It's like, well, wait a minute. If it's already happening, why do I need to go to a contract signing? Which makes you always wonder, if it's only official if a contract is signed. We've got a ton of matches, thousands of matches through the years that we didn't see a contract signed for that were made in the moment. So did they sign the contract afterwards? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why a contract needs to be signed for only certain matches to take place doesn't make sense. But it's just pro wrestling world, and we've all come to terms with it, and we've seen 14,000 different contract signings of which somebody ends up going through a table. It's typically the case. It's fine, whatever. And so I really enjoyed the chemistry between both of them. They've got it. Now it's going to come back to, are they going to have that chemistry in a physical sense? I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, but of course that's going to be the real test, is do they have it together in the ring? Both are professionals. I don't see any reason why not. I'm very, very interested to see how this matchup works out. I expect a a very good match, ultimately with a bit of a spoiler, but at least in my estimation, they'll probably put on a bust-ass match, really good match, ending up with Becky Lynch cheating to retain her title. I mean, that'll be the next step in the progression of Becky Lynch's heel turn, will be her cheating to win. And then her, saying, I don't understand what's wrong with you fans. Wouldn't you try to keep everything, do everything that you could to keep something you love? Wouldn't you do that? And she's slowly starting to devolve into a heel and calling out the fans this week for not doing the "you deserve it" chants, but yet still kind of doing her trademark moves, and she's still got her same entrance music, and people are still cheering for her. But I don't think people want to. People don't want to boo Becky right now. Why are we swimming upstream again? It seems as if this is Vince McMahon's favorite direction to go. Upstream. Why? Yeah, you could say that it had Becky's fingerprints all over it, and she's the one who wanted to do it. I don't care. Vince is the one that ultimately makes the decision, so he's the one that made the call on this, and I just don't understand it. But that said, I'm looking forward to the chemistry between these two in the ring, and you're going to get a bust-ass match. How can you not? But I don't expect Becky to drop that belt anytime soon. All right, well, WWE certainly made it known that they were really looking forward to next week's SmackDown. Not so much this week's in Jacksonville, Florida. And yeah, you could say they got in a Universal Championship match. That's probably the only thing you can really hang your hat on. And okay, Becky Lynch was there. But outside of that, they announced a lot of crap for next week, being at Madison Square Garden. And Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair have a contract signing. You have Brock Lesnar returning. You have Seth versus Edge, part 2. I feel like there's something else I was missing. But they really just stacked the deck for next week. It was really just, and I tweeted this out. You can follow me on Twitter, @wrestling_audio. It felt like one big 2-hour infomercial for the Madison Square Garden SmackDown. That's what this felt like to me. And I understand why, right? You're going to the biggest arena, at least the most famous arena in the world, as they say. And I understand why you're trying to make it as big as you can make it. But you also have to remember that the live crowd is not going to be happy, of which they're probably thinking to themselves, who cares, right? Who cares? It's just, this is one audience. We're placating to millions of people who are watching at home. And so we don't need to really worry about, a few thousand people's opinions or 10,000 people's opinions in the moment. So I felt for the people in Jacksonville, because there is nothing like being at a wrestling event and there's a match or a return being set up and they say, next week on SmackDown, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing worse than that. I gotta say, it is just a helpless, frustrating feeling when you hear that. Anybody that has gone to a wrestling event can adhere to this, or can agree, I would think, with this, and saying, hey, we're here now. Why are you talking about next week? I don't give a damn about the people next week. So I felt for the people in Jacksonville. Definitely did. So let's also talk about Brock Lesnar's return. I mean, there's not too much here. Apparently, Paul Heyman needs to silence his phone or change the ringtone for Brock Lesnar when he calls. I don't know. The interaction or the chemistry between himself and Kayla Braxton is entertaining, because she knows she's a pain in the neck to him, yet they do it kind of in a loving way, yet she's a journalist, so she's trying to get the answers out of him, and he's just constantly annoyed by her. So I love the chemistry between these two. It's always a fun time, and Paul Heyman ends up speaking with Brock Lesnar, and it was revealed that it's going to be Brock Lesnar coming in next week to likely go face-to-face with Roman Reigns. And he does disclose this information to Roman Reigns, and so that was that. But it's a big deal to have Brock back, I got to say, no doubt. And you do also wonder where Paul Heyman's loyalties truly lie. You do wonder if it's going to ultimately be Roman Reigns doing double duty somehow, Paul Heyman doing double duty, if Brock is drafted to another brand, which hopefully they are, or if they do a 2-man power trip and they end up again, being a duo and Paul Heyman's the mouthpiece. That'd be fun. I've been advocating for that for a very long time, of having Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns team up. That would be awesome. So, but obviously they have to have their match first, and I don't want the storyline to centralize around Paul Heyman, though, because he's not a performer. I mean, he is, but he's not an in-ring wrestler. So he can't get into a match with somebody if he turns his back on them, and nobody wants to see Paul Heyman in any kind of match whatsoever. It's ridiculous. So I hope it doesn't center around that, but Paul Heyman will be an integral part of how Roman and Brock end up coexisting or not. And that is going to be an interesting story to tell, even though Paul Heyman is not a performer in the in-ring sense, and you can't have a payoff of a match if there's a turn. So anyway, I think I've made my point there. So, all right, well, let's get on to something else that happened on SmackDown. That's Logan Paul. Logan Paul this past week is uninvited, but shows up anyway on a Kevin Owens show episode. And we have Kevin Owens out there interviewing Happy Corbin. He was accidentally called Baron Corbin, but I don't know if that was on purpose. Nonetheless, we have a Happy Corbin who is just so excited about everything and how happy he is that he has money, that really nothing bothers him. Logan Paul comes out and is immediately greeted with just ultra heat, and then having Kevin Owens just get in the face of Logan Paul, and Logan Paul doesn't seem to be as shook as he was last week, where I think it took Logan Paul and WWE a bit by surprise about how much heat Logan Paul had. And it was in San Diego this week, it was in Jacksonville this week, and the heat was not as hot as San Diego, but definitely loud and booing Logan Paul, who just has for whatever reason, people hate him. And I get why. I do kind of get why he doesn't have the greatest reputation. He's just completely showered in money. He's only famous because of YouTube and Vine and all that kind of thing. I get it. And so he's just a hated figure among some other controversial stuff that has happened. He's easy to hate. And this past week, he gets in the face of Logan Paul. They end up, shoving each other back and forth. And then Kevin Owens goes to attack him, and Happy Corbin ends up interjecting himself and intercepting Kevin Owens, laying him out. And then Logan Paul and Happy Corbin go up the ramp and smiling and all that stuff. So I think that this is, it's intriguing. It's the best thing Baron Corbin, it's going to take a while to say Happy Corbin. It's the best thing Corbin has done in a while, a long time. From the Lone Wolf to the Constable to the King to the Homeless Man, now to Happy Corbin. I think this is the best thing he's done in a while, and I'm all for it. As I said, I could see Happy Corbin finally collapsing whenever they want to deflate this character by just having someone come out and say that they hired an investigator to do some research into his funds, and he never paid taxes, so he owes millions in back taxes, rendering him poor once again. And he never paid taxes on his winnings. It's an easy thing to do. I think that they could do it at some point. So, from rags to riches, back to rags would be fun. I'm not saying right now, but I want to see this iteration of Baron Corbin breathe. But that's how you do it. It's fairly simple, I think. It's right there in front of you. But we'll see what they do. Either way, Logan Paul, you just want to see him get his ass kicked. He did, at least to his credit, he was on the receiving end of a stunner at WrestleMania. As we all remember, the crowd loved that. And so one of the very few celebrities to come in and not make himself go over, but rather just be there to take a stunner and send the crowd home happy. That does not happen often. So I got to give Logan Paul credit there. But as far as him as a human being, I've heard otherwise. Okay, I've heard otherwise that he's just not a nice guy. He's kind of a D-bag, whatever it may be. Fine. That makes him a great heel, and it makes you want to see somebody just beat the holy hell out of him. It does. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Kevin Owens does, probably eventually getting his hands on Logan Paul in I'm guessing a handicap match at Extreme Rules. That's probably what's going to happen, is a handicap match of some sort where it would be mostly Happy Corbin versus versus Kevin Owens, and then when it's opportune, you tag in Logan Paul, who does like 5% of the work, and maybe they get the victory, maybe they don't, but that's how you would balance the workload. So Logan Paul isn't completely exposed, or you have Logan Paul as a referee or a special enforcer, whatever. There's a lot you can do with somebody that is not an in-ring performer on a day-to-day basis. So at least, and also Kevin Owens is doing something relevant other than randomly doing commentary. So that's a good thing. They have something for Corbin, or Kevin Owens rather. That's good. Okay. So outside of that, the disrespect of Naiomi it's kind of weird. I mean, I'm not understanding why Naiomi is hanging out in the shadows of SmackDown, by the way. Like, I mean, literally hanging out in the shadows of SmackDown, where Sonya Deville was being, for some reason, a camera was following her while she was on her phone, because that's just what cameras do. There's nothing else of interest going on. So whoever's texting her on their phone, man, it's like a hummingbird feeder for cameramen to be there. But we have, of course, Sonya Deville on her phone talking to somebody that we don't know. We get a Naiomi in the background who, if she's so full of glow, you'd think that she wouldn't be able to hide in the dark, but somehow she was. And she emerged from the shadows and got in touch with Sonya Deville, saying, "Hey, you told me last week that you'd talk to me this week about my match." And she said, "Oh, yeah, well, can't you see I'm busy," or something like that, and talk to me next week. Brushes her off again. So I think this is going to be an ongoing trend that eventually leads to a Sonya Deville in-ring return. If that's where this is going, I'm fine with it. If otherwise, if you are truly just kind of pushing Naiomi to the side, I think that's a mistake. I think Naiomi does have something to contribute. We've seen it in the past, and I think she is a absolute player in the women's division. And people haven't really seen her at the forefront for quite some time. She has been MIA for a very, very long time. So again, if the end goal here is to get Sonya Deville back in the ring, as Naiomi grows more and more frustrated every week that she keeps getting pushed off, disrespected, ignored, whatever, then I'm okay with it. If this is truly leading to just, basically making Naiomi look like a fool and having Sonya Deville just use her powers for whatever reason to manipulate Naiomi into not ever able to compete, then no. So we'll have to see, but I'm all for Naiomi being a player in the game, a relevant player, and having Sonya Deville return, which I think we all agree is the best use of her time, rather than on her phone in her business suits. So, all right, let's take a quick break for the sponsor of the show, and then we'll be back on the other side. I've got some thoughts about this Finn Balor and Roman Reigns Universal Championship match, as well as that little flicker of red light that we saw that some people thought was a Brock Lesnar signal, or some people thought was the demon symbol. So we're going to talk about that on the other side of this. Face it, we've all argued with friends about the best and worst Nicolas Cage films, debated who the most iconic bands in 90s rock were, even tried to settle the score over the best pizza out there. We get it. You love ranking stuff. You love lists. And until now, you've had nowhere to turn to satisfy those powerful list cravings. But finally, there is hope. A podcast for anyone that loves a good list, loves to debate and rank anything and everything with their friends. A podcast for list makers just like you. Listwise is the podcast for list lovers by list lovers. The ultimate in ranking, debating, list making fun is here to satisfy your list lust, and you can find it every week at listwisepodcast.com or in the podcast player of your choice, simply by subscribing to Listwise wherever you listen. From Apple Podcasts to Spotify, list lovers like you finally have a home in the Listwise podcast. Subscribe today because everything is fair game in Listwise. Listwise is launching Monday, September 6th with 3 episodes, and then every Monday after that. Go subscribe now to Listwise so you don't miss an episode.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
All right, let's get into the Universal Championship match here. Roman Reigns, Finn Balor. At the beginning of this match, Usos attack Finn Balor brutally, using the steps to slam Finn Balor in the ribs several times. Finn Balor can barely stand. The Street Profits end up chasing away the Usos, but the damage is done, as the announcer said, and Finn Balor ends up sitting in the ring as Roman's music hits and Roman slowly walks down to the ring. I have to say, I thought about this. I bet you there are some matches on a weekly basis that are longer, or rather shorter, than Roman Reigns' entrance. Roman Reigns' entrance takes up a lot of TV time, doesn't it? I'm not complaining, but boy, oh boy, is it a long one. I mean, it's Undertaker-esque in terms of length. It's long. I venture to guess that the Roman Reigns entrance is going to be longer than the Goldberg match. So, take that for what it is. But Roman Reigns ends up getting into the ring with a smirk on his face and having Finn Balor obviously agree to the match. And then we get a decent, really good match. I shouldn't say decent. Decent is disrespectful in this match. This was really good. Really good. I forgot how much I loved Finn Balor. I watched a little bit of him in NXT after he took his hiatus there for a while, and then he came back to a much more confident, less smiley, and turn the other cheek type of Finn, but rather a, no, F this, I'm taking what I want Finn. I love that. He could be a top babyface easy on SmackDown if he already isn't, but he had a great showing against Roman, who in his own right did a very good job. The coup de grace kick out, you couldn't get a closer 3 count than that. That was a brilliant kick out by Roman Reigns, and to the referee's credit as well, because it's 2 to tango here. A great false finish, even though we all believe that Roman Reigns is not going to give up the belt here. It's just not a time, place, opponent. None of it makes sense. After a year-long reign, it does not make sense to end it here. But if they can make you believe, even for that split second, that, hey, maybe something could happen here. Maybe, just maybe, there's that small chance that they do something crazy. Then they've got you. And they had to be for just that split second. It's between that 2 and 3 count that you, especially the 2.5 and 3 count, where you go, right? And it takes you, it feels like that now, as a wrestling fan, this is difficult to explain, but if you're a wrestling fan, if you know, right? That count between, let's say, 2.5 and 3 feels like 5 seconds long. Because look, we see 2 counts all the time in matches, almost too much. There's barely any 1 counts, if you notice. 1 count should be utilized more, because guess what? Then the 2 count means more, and then the 3 count means even more. So that's another rant for another time. My point is, Roman Reigns here did a great job of utilizing those fractions of a second that are magnified as a wrestling fan, because we are so used to 2 counts. We get 2 counts at the beginning of matches now. 2 counts are the standard. Again, it's like people forgot how to count to 1, or as if 1 doesn't matter anymore. No, it should. But anyway, great job by both men. The selling by Finn with the attack from the Usos was excellent. Roman Reigns in his efforts as well just continues to shine. There's really nothing this guy has done wrong. It's really amazing that you look at this storyline a full year later, and you go, I don't think they screwed anything up. Like nothing, 0. There has been nothing that they've done that you've gone, oh my God, they've really screwed it now. Tell me the last storyline WWE has put out for a year, with whether it's a turn or whatever, and it has been this successful and these few mistakes. I can't name one for all the years I've been watching wrestling. This is awesome. This is awesome. So, no pun intended with the chance. So again, Finn Balor ends up losing, but here's where the interesting part comes in that everyone's talking about, and that is when Roman Reigns is walking back up the ramp, we have a quick blip, and it sounded like a heartbeat. It was like the orange lighting, and then it went away. And Roman acknowledged it, pun intended, and then he kept going and like nothing happened. So people are speculating one of two things. One, it's Brock Lesnar, or two, it's the heartbeat from the demon. I think it's the latter. The reason I don't think it's Brock Lesnar is, well, because we already were told earlier in the show that Brock Lesnar's coming for Roman Reigns next week on SmackDown. So why would they also put Brock Lesnar's quick blip of music there, which there was no Brock Lesnar music. He does have orange lights, though, when we already know it's not going to be this week, it's going to be next week. To me, it makes sense that the Demon should come back to the main roster. I know that he was defeated in NXT, but he's still undefeated on the main roster. It's been a long time since we've seen it. So with Finn Balor as the Demon character on SmackDown, if it's true, and I think it will be true because that I don't know what else that could possibly be, will be a lot of fun. And to see Roman deal with that character will be fun. Now, the kind of complex scenario happens here when Brock Lesnar ends up showing next week. Where does that go? Do they actually pull this off at Extreme Rules? Do they go to Saudi Arabia? And then if it is the Demon character returning to face Roman, well, where does that fit in? You wouldn't want a triple threat with Roman and Brock. That doesn't make sense. Unless he's going to be there to take the pinfall, saving both guys. Protecting both guys, I should say. So I don't know where they go with this. At least here's one good thing. They've got opponents lined up for Roman. Big time opponents. And that's what you need. And after that, shortly after that, assumingly there will be a shakeup or a draft, giving him a whole new fresh set of opponents. So they've done a really good job here, WWE, of managing the opponents for Roman. A really good job. So, do I think, the next question is, do you think, not necessarily me, do you guys think that Roman will drop his belt to either the Demon, Finn Balor, or Brock Lesnar, or somebody else? Could it be Drew McIntyre when the draft happens? Who knows? Could it be Bobby Lashley if they're drafted on the same brand? I mean, think about the opponents that Roman Reigns has not faced yet. That he has not faced. Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw. Matt Riddle on Monday Night Raw. There is a lot. Bobby Lashley. I know that he's a heel too, but Bobby Lashley would be a hell of an opponent for Roman Reigns. So there's some really good opponents sitting and waiting for Roman Reigns. I think all of those guys are probably going to SmackDown when the draft happens. I think SmackDown keeps Roman Reigns because he is the cornerstone, the face of the brand. And I think Fox wants to keep him. He is the best thing WWE has going right now. So I think he stays on SmackDown, if you ask me. And then we get Bobby coming over, Randy coming over, Riddle coming over, maybe AJ Styles coming over. It's just going to be maybe a complete flip-flop. Like everyone that's red turns blue, and everyone that's blue turns red. But of course, then again, it'd just be the same roster as different show. But I think for Roman Reigns' sake anyway, that's what you get. That's my opinion, my humble opinion. All right, so let's move on here to something else here that happened, and let's see. Rick Boogs beat Dolph Ziggler, and then we got Toni Storm backstage with Dolph, and she was saying that it's nice to meet you. I'm a fan, but I still want Rick Boogs to win. Why? It was weird. I don't know why we need to just have Toni Storm sit backstage. This is Toni Storm, for God's sakes. Why is she backstage? Why is she not in the ring? But Rick Boogs defeated Ziggler very quickly with a pump handle slam. So that's that. I don't even know what to make of this. I really, really don't. Sami Zayn defeated Dominic Mysterio via pinfall after one hell of a kick. See what I did there? And we got Rey Mysterio inadvertently causing the loss of Dominic. I think we could be going down the road of Dominic versus Rey. Or at the very least, a split. And having Rey take a step back, step aside, and let his son sink or swim on his own. At the very least. Maybe we don't get a match out of these two, although I think that'd be fun, entertaining, and there's some material to pull from. But maybe we just get a soft split. He goes his way, Dominic goes his, and that's that. But This is a formula made for a tag team to split when one continually, inadvertently ends up costing the other a singles match. And that's what's happening here. It's a tried and true formula. One of the tried and true formulas to split up a tag team. So the next segment here, I'm not going in any particular order, is Cesaro defeating Seth Rollins via disqualification after Seth used the chair. After the match, Rollins continued to use the chair until breaking a piece off of the leg and using it to lock in a crossface, stealing the move from Edge. Rollins then hit Cesaro with a stomp. Edge finally ran in for the save as Rollins was about to hit Cesaro with the concerto. Edge challenged Rollins to a match next week at Madison Square Garden. So just when you thought maybe these two were done, they're not. And I'm not complaining. This is fine. I was going to be very surprised if they only wanted one match out of these two, given how great their match was at the last pay-per-view event at SummerSlam. So this is good stuff. The only issue I have is Cesaro being used as a pawn here after the elevation he got in the Universal Championship picture, and then just relegated back to helping other people get elevated. I just, what is up? And does anybody else understand the swing? Why is it such a crowd-pleasing maneuver? You know, I look at the swing and I'm thinking to myself, this is like what two teenage kids would do with each other if they got in the ring and they were just allowed to do whatever they wanted. It's too playful of a move for me. And it's also allowing Cesaro to spin around. So Cesaro is as much of a victim of this move as, say, Seth Rollins or whoever he's spinning is. Now you could say, well, the blood's not rushing to his head. Okay, fine. But he's still the one spinning with that person. He should take that out of his arsenal. I know they never, ever will. They never will. I get why. But it's too playful. It's not a finishing maneuver of any kind. It just makes the person dizzy. I'm not a fan of the swing. I gotta say, I love Cesaro in the ring. He is a wrestling purist at his core. We know this. Nothing but respect for the guy. But man, I don't get the swing. I don't know why people are so entertained by it. We need to stop cheering for it. Please. I don't know. I'm being a little nitpicky here, but it's bothered me for a long time, though. I'm not apologizing. Never apologize for what I say here. But I got to say, it is not something that is my favorite. Okay, the Usos end up losing to the Street Profits via disqualification when the Usos refused to obey the referee's commands, which basically was the illegal man in the ring for too long. I think that's what it was. Which, by those standards, almost every single tag team match should end in a disqualification, but they were actually enforcing the rules on this match for some reason. The Usos wouldn't stop attacking Montez Ford in the corner, which again forced the DQ, and a post-match brawl ended with Ford hitting a dive to the Usos outside the ring. So it's basically a non-finish, as it had to be, so that these two could continue their program all the way through the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, which is fine. Who else are these two going to work with right now? They're both very high-level tag teams. I think they could have and will have some amazing matchups in the future. I don't think Extreme Rules is the end of it because they don't have a great depth in the tag team division. So you're going to see Street Profits versus Usos until the end of time, meaning until the draft. It's going to be a long time before these two stop, working with one another. So, all right, well, that was SmackDown, guys. That was SmackDown in a nutshell. I know, again, Michael Riddle does an excellent job, but I want to always input on SmackDown because it's usually the better show, and I think it's important. So, as far as Monday Night Raw goes, I have no problem with WWE elevating Damien Priest. I really don't. I don't have a problem with it because they're trying to build new stars. That's their job. That's what ends up ultimately at the end of the day, drawing money and continuing to progress and grow the company. Stars always will. I just don't know if it's too much too soon for Damien. For the casual fan that has come out of nowhere, Damien Priest has come out of nowhere, rather. And all of a sudden he's United States champion. And then he's in a match with Bobby Lashley. you know, and then he gets a clean victory over Drew McIntyre. WWE needs to be very careful how they continue to portray Damien Priest over the coming weeks. How they portray him over the coming weeks, I think, will ultimately decide whether or not the fans are behind this push or look at it and go, whoa, 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 whoa. Too much, too soon. Back up. Hang on. We'll tell you when we're ready. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. The fans seem to be receptive of him so far. And I still am just at the tail end of getting rid of his face on the whole WrestleMania build that lasted for like 18 months, it felt like. I think that this is going to end up being successful. I'll err on the side of positivity. But they do need to be very careful with this. If their ultimate goal is to push Damien Priest to the top, don't do it in a month. It's called slow build. There is such a thing as long-term story arc. That is a thing. You can do that. We don't have to push every single storyline through in about 2 weeks. So anyway, I think Damien Priest is a great talent in the ring. He's got a presence on the microphone that you pay attention to. He feels comfortable. He doesn't seem rattled by the moment. And if he is, he's hiding it very well. So I have no issue with Damien Priest being pushed. I would just, again, based on history of them pushing stars, and when the fans know that WWE is pushing somebody and it's very clear, they oftentimes push too hard, and then the fans go, yeah, screw this. We're out, right? And they jump ship. It's happened before. So Damien Priest ends up, again, very clean victory, beating Drew. That was a really big deal. Biggest win of his career, bar none. So RK Bro defeated Bobby Lashley and MVP via pinfall. I believe this was the main event of Raw, again, 6 days ago, but that was. And RK Bro is easily the best thing that WWE has going on right now on the Monday Night Raw side anyway. So it's always great to, see these two together, and I hope they don't end up trying to turn somebody heel right now. It feels like everyone's turning heel. Like nobody turns babyface. It feels like that anyway. That's what draws the most attention, is a heel turn, right? You don't ever see usually a headline that says so-and-so has massive babyface return. No. It's always a heel turn. It's always that turn from the light to the dark that gets people's attention and not the other way around. Isn't that interesting? In the headlines and all the wrestling websites, you always see or hear about rumors of this heel turn, that heel turn. Very rarely do you hear about the turn to a babyface character. It's just interesting. Something I thought about the other day. So anyway, RK Bro, good stuff, great stuff. The best thing that they have going on Monday Night Raw easily. So again, if you want a full Monday Night Raw review, you can go listen to that on the feed. It's about like 6 or 7 shows ago, quite a while ago, but it is there for the Monday Night Raw review that took place 6 days ago. So I don't want to continue too much. I haven't heard though any more follow up regarding the whole quote shoot fight that Nia Jax and Charlotte had on Raw. But what I do hear is that they are shifting gears away from Alexa and to Nia Jax for Charlotte's championship. Interesting choice. A very interesting choice if that's the case and they keep Alexa Bliss out of this, because Alexa Bliss is more of a babyface than, of course, Nia Jax is by all accounts. So why they would do a hated heel against a hated heel is interesting, unless they add Alexa Bliss into the picture and they do some kind of 3-way. But I'm interested to hear the follow-up to this matchup that Nia Jax and Charlotte had, if they even acknowledge that things got a little rough out there. Not actually saying, hey, you actually started to punch me. You actually punched. No. Of course they wouldn't say that. They would just say, I hope you enjoyed those the fist to your face that I gave you last week. I don't know. There's a way that they could put it that's in pro wrestling context, but also acknowledges, hey, we know that things got a little out of control last week. They could even put it that way. They could even say things got a little out of control. There's easily ways to phrase it that doesn't break the fourth wall and also acknowledges the fact and doesn't ignore all the attention that this spot has gotten. So I think they'll do that. They should. They'd be kind of fools not to. Anytime there's controversy, guess what that creates? You guessed it. Okay. Anything else here? I'm trying to follow up on Raw. I don't want to duplicate my analysis from Monday. I don't think so. I did earlier today a news brief, and it was about AJ Lee's possible return to pro wrestling. It was also about a massive return to SmackDown next week. No, I'm not talking about Brock Lesnar. So go check that out. And, I'll just tell you right now that return, because you probably have heard it by now, is indeed rumored to be The Undertaker. So if Undertaker is actually supposed to be coming back next week, I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical of that. I said this on my news brief show. I'm a little bit nervous about The Undertaker returning, not because I'm worried he'll get a good pop, but I'm worried that they'll actually do one more match. I don't want it. Please, leave Undertaker's career alone. I could see them being tempted, however, because he didn't end his career essentially on his terms, and he didn't get to do it in front of fans. So I'm a little worried. That they're going to feel that temptation, and Mark Calloway, is going to say, hey, yeah, let's just do one. Give you that ride off into the sunset with the fans in attendance for my match. I think that they were very tempted by that. So let's all kind of say a silent prayer this evening that we don't get another match with Taker. So, all right. Another interesting little tidbit here. WWE files a new trademark for Matt Riddle. So here is what they filed. On August 31st, WWE filed to trademark Bro Down with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The term is related to Matt Riddle. Riddle and Randy are the current Raw Tag Team Champions. The purpose is for entertainment services, namely wrestling exhibitions and performances. So that's all that legalese stuff. So here's the last part of this. This is from Wrestling Inc., one of the websites I get some my information from, as we all do. We all know the big ones. The latest status of the Bro Down trademark application, according to this report here, there's a link, is live and pending and will be assigned to an examining attorney approximately 6 months after the filing date. So, wow. Okay. I wonder if that means it's going to take 6 months to get this trademark approved and patented, right? Like, I don't know. Bro Down. What are they going for? I will say, I remember when I heard this news about Happy Corbin, that they filed something for Happy Corbin. And so I don't know what they have in mind for Bro Down. Anybody got any ideas about, instead of a hoedown, it's a Bro Down? So Matt Riddle, oh God, I'm scared. I'm scared what that means. But if anybody has any ideas, let's talk. All right. So the other piece of news, kind of an integrated news brief here as news continues to pump out. It was reported yesterday Sasha Banks was backstage on this past Friday's SmackDown. Prior to that, Banks had not been at any shows since the last time she wrestled on an August 7th Super Show. As noted, the WWE Superstar was pulled from this year's SummerSlam due to not being cleared for action. It's also been noted that there was a backstage expectation that she would return for this week's Super SmackDown taping at MSG, although nothing is set in stone. And then the article goes on to say that today, Banks tweeted out 12 glowing star emojis, along with a video of the final countdown by Europe. 12 days from now is Friday, September 17th, which could be when she's returning to SmackDown. There was also speculation in the comments that Banks was giving a nod to Daniel Bryan, who used the same song in Ring of Honor before he went to WWE. Bryan has been rumored to have signed with AEW and is potentially showing up at tonight's All Out pay-per-view. So, yeah, it's going to be a big night for All Out. Let's just say that. I already watched the Punk match. I'll leave the spoilers be for anybody that's interested. I won't say anything in case you haven't seen it, but so far, All Out has been a very good pay-per-view. I got to say, very good. Even Paul White, Big Show, made his return, in-ring return. So how about that? Okay, so as far as Sasha Banks returning, 12 is the star. I mean, yeah, it could be that she's referring to Friday, September 17th. You would think that they would, want her in Madison Square Garden, but who knows? I have given up on whether or not Sasha Banks is going to be anywhere at any time. I mean, she seems to be a transparent entity. It's like chasing a ghost with her. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I should be watching, Ghost Adventures to try to find her. Great show, by the way. One of my favorite ghost shows. Anybody cares. But it does feel like that. Anytime Sasha Banks is saying she's going to be somewhere, WWE tells me I don't believe it. Until her ghost shows up, I am a bit skeptical. She is the believe it to see it entity. It's kind of like with Keith Lee, right? Like his ghost shows up once in a while, and I only believe he's there when I actually see him there. That's how I feel about Keith Lee. Sadly. I mean, Keith Lee is just not exactly in a great spot for whatever reason with WWE right now. So, all right. Well, that is some extra news here. And if you guys continue to enjoy those news briefs, let me know. I have got some decent feedback so far. It kind of keeps the show fresh, keeps you on top of the most recent events. And I really do appreciate everybody for listening. If you love this show, and I know you do, go to Apple Podcasts and click that 5-star rating, or anywhere that allows 5-star ratings and reviews. You write a review, it really does help out the show. You can also support us by going ad-free on Apple Podcasts. Click the ad-free button, or on Patreon at patreon.com/WWE podcast. Go ad-free and get everything. You get a ton of stuff. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be recording with Anthony DeMarco in our new What If. And our new What If topic has yet to be determined. We're still mulling over some of our potentials. And then I may release it tomorrow night. I may wait later in the week, but Monday nights are when we record it. Tuesday, of course, is Raw. Wednesday is loaded with 2 shows of Wrestling Nostalgia and the mailbag. And then you guys know the schedule. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This does continue to grow because of you guys. This show is successful because of you, not because of me. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And yes, as always, I will talk to you next time. Face it, we've all argued with friends about the best and worst Nicolas Cage films, debated who the most iconic bands in 90s rock were, even tried to settle the score over the best pizza out there. We get it. You love ranking stuff. You love lists. And until now, you've had nowhere to turn to satisfy those powerful list cravings. But finally, there is hope. A podcast for anyone that loves a good list, loves to debate, and rank anything and everything with their friends. A podcast for list makers just like you. Listwise is the podcast for list lovers by list lovers. The ultimate in ranking, debating, list making fun is here to satisfy your list lust, and you can find it every week at listwisepodcast.com or in the podcast player of your choice simply by subscribing to Listwise wherever you listen. From Apple Podcasts to Spotify, list lovers like you finally have a home in the Listwise podcast. Subscribe today because everything is fair game in Listwise. Listwise is launching Monday, September 6th with 3 episodes, and then every Monday after that. Go subscribe now to Listwise so you don't miss an episode.